Welcome to our third video. This time we will review some of our sensory systems and their relationship to behavior. The goal in understanding that there is a relationship between these two is to change our perspective and increase our empathy every time that we're having a hard time managing or supporting our children. When we're capable to see that the person is not acting out or is not manipulating you to get something, there is a greater chance that the adult in charge will look for more alternatives to support the needs behind the behavior rather than trying to control it. This presentation is possible thanks to TAP and Illinois Extension. As we reviewed in our last video, sensory processing disorder can be described as a traffic jam. Sometimes the incoming messages are detected, modulated, or interpreted as too much information or not enough information, and this can be reflected in behavior. It is also important to understand that these differences can happen in a broad spectrum of severity, sometimes just in one sensory system, and in other cases it can be in more than one at the same time. Sensory processing disorder is not the same for everyone. Depending on how the person is processing the information, SPD can lead you to have over-responses or under-responses to sensory stimuli. As a cause-effect relationship, having an over-response can lead you to have avoiding behaviors, whereas being under-responsive can lead you to craving and seeking behaviors to then reconcile the information received with the individual sensory needs. So how can we distinguish these behaviors? Let's start with the auditory system. Being over-responsive to this sense may lead to avoiding behaviors, such as defensiveness against loud noises. The most common ones at home are the food processor or the vacuum cleaner. In public spaces, they may tend to cover their ears as a natural response to protect themselves from unfamiliar noises. If they start getting overload, you may see behaviors like screaming, crying, getting aggressive, and sometimes trying to run away. And these are all behaviors that are communicating that this person is experiencing something very uncomfortable and sometimes painful, and it's not under their control. On a classroom setting, the kid may seem to be easily distracted by noises that others simply don't register. So sometimes these kids, they have a hard time completing their tasks. Being under-responsive to the auditory system will oftentimes reflected as seeking behaviors. That can be identified in actions like needing constant repetition or direction or having to call their names more than one time. They may enjoy very loud music or repetitive sounds that can be disruptive for the rest, but very, very soothing for them. When there's no external music or external sounds, they may also try to make these sounds with objects or tapping with their hands or with their mouth. In the case of the tactile system, an over-response may also lead to avoiding behaviors such as avoidance of getting too close to their peers, feeling very uncomfortable while they are in line. They may overreact to something that from our perception, it's a minor injury, just a scratch. They may avoid walking barefoot in different surfaces like grass or the sand. It can be very uncomfortable. They may get distressed by certain clothes. They may get irritable when it's time to get dressed, and oftentimes they really, really enjoy being naked at home. But the transition is very hard to get in pajamas or to get dressed to go outside. When we're in the presence of under-responses to tactile input, the child will oftentimes need to be involved in sensory-seeking behaviors like craving interaction with other humans or objects in a way that sometimes is inappropriate, or the other person is not understanding why it's getting so close to me. They are not bothered by injuries, cuts, or bruises, and also as a consequence, these kids may need more guidance on how to be safe when they're playing. As you know, the vestibular system is related to our body position. So when there is an over-response to movement, a person can be highly anxious. And all these behaviors associated to this anxiety can be explained by having to be constantly alert on their movements and also avoiding places and spaces that are not physically stable enough. It can also affect their posture, so they can sometimes look clumsy or move slowly. This person will not enjoy games that involve spinning or swinging. And from the perspective of a child, this can be very problematic because it's not that he doesn't want to play with the classmates or he doesn't want to be, or that he wants to be alone during recess. It's just that all the options that a playground offers is just not an option for him or her. When there is an under response, the behavior will be seeking these activities, full of motion, especially spinning, swinging, or hanging upside down. Our proprioceptive system is related to our body awareness, and we do it through our muscles and joints. So when there is an under response, you will find seeking behaviors of movements or activities that involve strength or deep pressure. So this person is going to enjoy climbing, pushing or pulling or chewing on things that are hard, everything that involves muscles and joints. So what happens on a school setting when the child must be sitting still? That child, to pay attention or to focus, somehow it's going to be compensating or getting this stimuli that is craving. So you can observe the child probably chewing on a pencil or chewing on the shirt. If we as caregivers, we notice these kind of patterns, sometimes we have the chance to change a little bit our routine, and give the child the chance to participate in games or sports or in activities that include movement or strength. If that's not the case, sometimes we can offer some co-regulation with simple activities at home before getting into sedentary activities. For example, a tight hug or pushing the wall together during 10 seconds before getting into reading or meal times or homework. In general, children who register proprioceptive information differently have a hard time measuring the amount of force they need to use while they're coloring or playing with others. And they can easily get into a state of frustration because it really wasn't their intention to break the coloring pencil when they were coloring the coloring page, right? Or it wasn't their intention to pushing the friend so hard while they were playing tag, for example. As we mentioned, seeking behaviors or avoiding behaviors are not voluntary actions. And this person can tell by other people's feedback or this constant negative reinforcement that their actions are not well received. When a person doesn't get to meet their needs or has difficulties getting along with others because of their sensory differences, we can now understand why this person can be anxious or impulsive or aggressive or sad, right? Or maybe having constant tantrums as a child because he's not able to communicate that well, and everything driven by frustration. When we identify a person having this kind of behavior, we tend to try to control and restrict the behavior. Sometimes because we think that that person may benefit from some discipline. Sometimes it's because this behavior is interrupting some kind of dynamic in a group, or sometimes it's for safety reasons. However, unless there are safety reasons to control or stop the behavior, we must empathize with these different ways to process and reach out for professional advice to find alternatives for your child's sensory needs. On our TAB website, you can find a list of resources to support you and your family.